Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Peppers are a summer garden favorite. Today we're going to learn all about them. Also, there's lots of advice floating around about how to plant. Some is true, a lot is not. Today we're separating fact from fiction. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Tom Mashour. Mr. Tom is the Extension Master Gardener in Tipton County, and Carol Reese is here. Ms. Carol is an ornamental horticulture specialist with UT Extension. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
All right, Mr. Tom, we got to talk about peppers.
Love them.
I know you love to talk about peppers.
Oh, yeah, I do.
All right, so where you want to start?
Well, just talk about varieties.
Okay, let's do that.
One catalog has 80 different varieties of peppers. And that's not all inclusive. It contains there's a lot more peppers than just that one catalog.
Okay.
Anywhere from bell peppers to ornamental peppers that grows these little tiny little purple peppers. But in ornamental peppers, all peppers are edible.
Okay.
Peppers are rated on the Scoville scale, which rates them by their pungency. Is that the right word? Mm-hmm. A bell pepper, no score at all. Then you get into your jalapenos, and on the Scoville scale, they're around 20,000. You get into the habaneros, they're anywhere from 250,000 to 450,000.
Ouch.
You get to the ghost pepper, and it's 1 to 1.1 million. And then I understand that there's a pepper that's even hotter. And what makes them hot is the capsaicin.
Capsaicin.
Capsaicin, thank you. That's in it. And pure capsaicin, one more time.
Yeah, capsaicin.
Thank you. It runs about 15 million.
Oh.
And a lot of these heat pads, that's what they have in them to make them hot. So you get that heat from them. I personally do not like really hot peppers.
I don't either.
And one of the cute things is right here, this is called a food jalapeno pepper.
Okay.
It looks, grows, and tastes just like a jalapeno, but it's just as hot as a bell pepper. So you get all the flavor, but no pain. And peppers are members of the nightshade family, which also includes tomatoes, peppers, tomatoes, potatoes,
eggplant.
and eggplant, thank you. And the unique thing about them is when they group them together a lot is due to the flower. And all of them, the male and female parts are in each blossom. So they're considered wind pollinated. As long as there's a little breeze to shake them up a little bit, that's all they need. Matter of fact, in greenhouses where they grow hothouse tomatoes and peppers and stuff like that, all they really do is every morning walk through with like bamboo sticks and just bang them, bang, 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 bang as they walk down them, which is enough shaking to cause pollination.
Oh, interesting.
Which also creates a problem. One of the problems is, like I did at my house by mistake, and I knew better. I mean, I really did, but I screwed up, and I planted some sweet banana peppers next to my jalapeno peppers. Guess what I ended up with? I ended up with banana peppers that were actually hotter than the jalapenos. So I'll have to give those away with the cautionary note. Starting peppers, though, are relatively easy. One of the problems is, they don't grow anywhere near as fast as tomato plants do.
Okay.
And they take longer to germinate. So I usually start I start everything indoors or in the greenhouse. But I start them approximately a month before I even think about starting my tomatoes. And the tomatoes, from the time I start the seeds to the time they're ready to go in the garden, is less than 6 weeks. Peppers, probably about 2 months.
Wow.
Before I put them in the garden, before they're able to handle the weather like that. But and I also plant them in pairs. I'll plant 2 of them about that far apart, and then a space of 18 inches. Then I plant 2 more, and then I plant 2 more and 2 more in pairs. And the reason for that is the foliage of one plant helps protect the peppers of the adjacent plant when the sun is like rising in the east, and then it reverses on the west side. And it helped prevent one problem. I've still got a little bit of damage from it, but this right here is sun scalding. And that's because the sun got exposed, or the pepper got exposed directly to the sun. This one here got damaged because it was touching the ground, and the little critters that live in the ground got to it. And of course, this is what you're looking for.
Oh yeah, it looks good.
Looks good. And by the way,
tell me this, are those still edible?
yes, they are actually. What you would do, or I would do, is I would cut out the bad part of it. In this case, the sun scalding, and then cut it up in pieces. Same thing with this one. Cut it up, and then put them in one of those self-sealing bags. Squeeze the air out of it, and zip it closed. And by reducing the amount of air in there, they just seem to last longer. They need, like most vegetables, at least 6 hours of daylight. You need to stake them with bamboo sticks or something, because when it gets heavy, hopefully it will get heavy with peppers, the plants are kind of brittle. If you get 3 or 4 peppers on the stem, it'll break off.
Okay. And I've seen people use cages.
You can.
With their peppers.
Those little
for that purpose.
cone-shaped cages that are ridiculous for use on tomatoes, but they work good for peppers because they do support it.
Okay.
As far as I know, that's about the only use for them. Watering, they like moderate watering, just like most vegetables. They like a damp soil, not soggy, but damp. And by having it damp, constantly damp, you prevent a lot of problems, like blossom end rot and a few other things.
Okay.
They like the source of water there, and when you want to water at the drip line all the way out. A balanced fertilizer, like 10-10, 10-10-10, 13-13-13, 15-15-15.
Sure.
Which again is good for most vegetables, but not all vegetables.
So when's a good time to pick them?
Actually, and that's a good point. When they start turning red, they get sweeter. This is like especially on bell peppers. And by the way, on scalding, some bell peppers are about the only pepper that is affected by sun scalding.
Okay. Okay.
But there's a fine point when the tomatoes were solid red and they get mushy. So if you want a good sweet tomato or pepper, like on bell peppers, then when it starts turning red, but before it goes completely red, it's still got a little bit of green in it, it's still going to be firm and sweet. So that's the best time to pick it. And also, the fewer, like almost a lot of your fruits type vegetables, the fewer the fruit, the bigger the fruit.
Ah, right.
So on peppers, one of the people complaining was, I just keep getting small peppers. Well, they probably got about 100 peppers in that plant. So I usually tell people kind of limit to 3 or 4 peppers per plant. And then when you harvest one, when it's at the right size for your needs, then let another one grow.
Okay.
And you'll be very successful in that. And also, you don't have to have a garden for grow peppers. They look fantastic in flower beds. And they're very...
probably even containers.
Yeah, they're very versatile as far as that goes. And like I said, one of the few fruits, stuff you can grow in your flower bed that's edible.
All right, Mr. Tom, we appreciate the information about peppers.
Okay, I hope that's helpful.
All right, thank you much. High tunnels.
Yeah.
'Cause I know a lot of producers here in Shelby County are using high
Yeah,
tunnels now.
yeah. And
for
that-
tomatoes and some other of their
Right.
fruits. So.
And that's a term to me that is just another name for something we already had, because a high tunnel is just a cold frame greenhouse. That's all it is. It is an unheated house, usually Quonset, or bow shut, round like this, semicircle, and it's covered with one sheet of plastic.
Right.
And a lot of, say, vegetable farmers or cut flower producers, they use those as, again, season extenders, and they're actually growing crops early. Like people will grow, to get a start on the season of their tomatoes. They'll
Yeah,
grow them
yeah.
in the high tunnel, and they're able to pull up the sides or ventilate it because they're unheated, but yet as the season goes on, see in the spring, it can get pretty hot in there.
Yeah.
So it needs to be able to either open the ends or roll the sides up or something. And even some people kind of put it where they can slide the whole house
seen that.
to another location. And usually in the high tunnel, crops and plants are grown in the ground.
Right.
They're not up on benches or something.
Right.
So it's just a unheated season extender. And sometimes they'll have supplemental heat just in case that the weather gets really, really cold one night and you don't want your, tomato plants or your cut flowers or whatever,
freeze.
cucumbers, whatever you're growing, Some people grow strawberries even in them
Okay.
to get a little earlier season on that.
All right, Ms. Carol, I can't wait to hear this, okay? Planting misinformation. Okay? Where you want to start with that? I
Gotcha.
can't wait.
Well, I can be pretty vicious sometimes.
I know you can.
I was checking out somewhere
I know you
recently, and
can.
the girl behind the counter tried to sell me soil amendments
Uh-oh.
with my plants, and there were some old Hollywood junipers. And I was like, don't believe in them. So, I believe in improving soil, but from the top down, like Mother Nature
Okay.
does. If you dig a hole, they want you to dig a hole and mix the soil amendments in the hole and then plant in there. And actually what you're doing is creating a bucket of vastly different textured soil, which is going to fill up with water in wet times because the tight soil acts like a bucket.
Right.
And it's going to dry out faster during dry times. Plus, the roots don't really want to leave that little pampered
Right,
area. They're like, oh, I don't want to go over in that
This is
tight soil.
nice.
I'll stay right here, which means it'll blow over easy and, again, be a challenge to keep it watered. So I just break up the native soil as little as possible to get it in there. And also, if I do need to improve my soil, and my house, I just built a house in 2011, a lot of bulldozer work, so I really don't have a lot of good native soil. So I'm not saying never
Okay.
till in soil amendments. But if you do the whole area
Right.
so that it can continue, because tree roots especially, they want to go out sideways, really far. So the more you can help them do that, that's good.
Okay.
They like for you to add like hormones and root
Yeah.
stimulators to the hole. That no scientific research has shown that gives any benefit. It's just another product that they're trying to sell you over the counter.
Interesting. Okay.
Don't put any fertilizer in that hole.
I've heard that one too. Okay.
In fact, don't fertilize that plant for the first year. Woody plants, now annuals and vegetables, sure you do.
Sure.
That's a different thing. And you can till in all the stuff you want to there for that quick
Okay.
response.
Okay.
But for trees and shrubs, I don't recommend fertilizer for the first year because you have a challenge plant anyway. It's going through some shock. It's having to get real integrated into that new setting. And fertilizers are salty and they draw water from the roots. So you really don't want to be pushing the envelope with that and trying to give them a little bit more challenge. People want to do that when a plant's sick too. They like
Yeah.
throw some fertilizer on.
fertilizer
I
on it,
tried
right.
fertilizing it and it hadn't responded. Well, you don't want a whole bunch of rich food when you're sick either. So don't do that to the plant. Just nurse it during droughty times. Try not to stress it. See if it can recover from whatever is going on.
Okay. Let me ask you this though.
Okay.
Let me back you up for a second.
Yes.
So when do you recommend tilling?
Okay.
Tilling. Okay.
Yes. When if I'm going to do a vegetable garden, maybe. Now you can go the lasagna route,
Right.
and just layer things on top. But if I really want to improve the soil, the annuals, and I really need to plant a collect for seasonal display.
Okay.
I'm going
Good.
to change that garden out twice a year.
Okay.
From cool to warm season. I want that quick response. I don't
Right.
have all day to wait for that plant to try to. So I'm probably going to till in, get some
Okay.
good amendments and some quick fertilizer boost, and get that quick turnover for me there.
Good. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also in my soil, I'm down to the B horizon.
Wow.
So I'm going to do the whole area. I don't have any soil structure left because of all the bulldozer
Bulldozer,
work.
right,
So
okay.
I'm not preserving anything
Okay. Gotcha.
by not tilling, because when we don't till, we're trying to preserve soil structure that was originally there.
Okay.
And right now I don't have any.
Good stuff. Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, I do strip tilling, just going to till one little strip exactly where I put the seeds.
Yeah,
And
well,
I-
the vegetable garden, I think that's cool. That's fine. Maybe not on my permanent vegetables. I mean, perennial. I'm going to do some perennial vegetables around my new garden plot, and I'm probably not going to till that every year by any means.
Okay.
Anyway, another is container plants are always better than B&B. Because it turns out that
that.
container plants have their own set of problems, which is root girdling, which I was not a big believer in, and now I'm convinced. And Now with these days of looking online and finding lots of good images, you can find the coolest pictures of what circling roots can do. They actually wrap around, a lot of times, especially when they're planted too deep, and they will girdle that trunk so severely that it's just like you put a piece of steel twine or wire around it. It also makes them snap at that point too. So you got to be sure, if you are planting container plants, to get those roots teased out or saw through them with a serrated saw. Or B&B material, which, if it's been properly grown, is actually not good. All those roots are going to be going out into the soil like they're supposed to.
Let's go back again. So B&B stands for?
Ball and burlap.
Okay.
You dig up a root ball, you wrap it in burlap. Another myth was you could leave it on there because it'll rot.
I was just about to ask you that. So what about that one?
You do not. You take it off. If it rotted that fast, would you use it?
Right.
So, and also they don't even use real burlap these days. They have some kind of synthetic product that looks like burlap. You want those roots to get in touch with that soil as fast as you can. Take off the cage, take off the burlap, take off the wire. Do whatever you can to actually get naked roots in touch with the soil where it's going to be growing, and water in well, water in deeply.
Okay. Water in well, water in deeply.
Yes. Even if you have rain, if you have irrigation, that first soaking, you need to really get that root ball settled in and soaked. We used to hear B&B material could only be planted in the winter when it's dormant. But truth is, if it's been well handled, root pruned, wrapped in a good ball of burlap, there's a lot of good intact roots in that plant right there. You can certainly plant them year round, as long as you're willing to water, which is the same thing you had to do with container plants anyway. So that is another myth. They also used to tell you, be sure you don't let that root ball come apart. Keep that soil. Now they've discovered if you knock all that soil off and plant it, get it into contact with the soil where it's going to be growing, it'll actually grow off faster than the one that is kept in the original root ball.
Okay.
So somebody finally does research. If we got time for more, the idea that raw wood chips are always a bad idea for mulching established plants. It is a bad idea if you're tilling it in little baby plants. It's going to rob the nitrogen, and it can certainly deprive them of the nutrition they need for growth. But if you're just using raw wood chips to put on the top of the ground around well-established plants, it does not steal nitrogen. It does not. It's a perfectly good source and a good way to recycle things and help from hauling those kinds of things off to the landfill.
Okay.
Talking about fertilizer, people have misconceptions about fertilizer being good for plants and what types of fertilizer. Number one, most of our soils have plenty of P and K, so you usually don't have to add a lot of that. You really don't have to fertilize a woody plant at all. You really don't. We got plenty of nutrition in the soil. The plants out in the woods have done fine without anybody helping them out. We like to see that rich growth and push them along a little bit. People assume manure is always a good idea. It's a good organic source. It breaks down slow. Some plants don't like manure. And we discovered that the hard way because we thought, well, we grew up on a dairy farm and we switched over to being a blueberry orchard. We had put manure on everything. Blueberries don't like manure. It's too alkaline.
Yeah, right.
So and most of our ornamentals like an acid soil. Hollies, camellias, azaleas,
gardenias.
They do not like that alkaline soil. So don't make that assumption. Manure is always a good idea.
Does manure contain a lot of salt?
I don't know if it's salt, it's alkaline. I don't think it's I wouldn't think it would be a high salt thing at all. Companion plants, you hear that business all the time.
We get it all the time.
Companion plants, compost tea. I read somewhere, so why would you think a diluted product from compost would be better than actual compost? Makes no sense, does it? So, and they say it cures all ills. You can use it for, curing these diseases and that disease. True, a healthier plant might be able to resist some disease. I really like people to research. There's some good books out there, the truth about home remedies that you can read. Which ones actually work, because some do.
Okay.
But a lot of the myth about companion plants was plants that repel mosquitoes.
Hit it all the time.
I watch them land. I watch a mosquito land right on that citronella leaf. Like, really?
All right, didn't do anything to it, huh?
No, but people swear by it because they didn't have mosquitoes that summer. Well, there was some other reason you didn't have mosquitoes that summer. It had nothing to do with your citronella plants.
That's what you see on the internet all the time.
Yes.
Recommended plants to repel mosquitoes. How about that?
Somebody said put a little mint in your house and the mice will scamper away. I'm like, really? So, yeah. We have to be careful about these things. If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably
It probably
not.
is.
Yeah.
Miss Carol, that's some good stuff.
Okay.
I've been waiting for that. That's some real good stuff.
Oh,
Thank you
good.
much. All right.
Okay, just like on Goldilocks, the 3 bowls of porridge, the soil has got to be in the right condition too. Example being this right here, this pile right here will not form a ball, so it's kind of a little bit on the dry side. This one right here, this is way too wet. This is one you're going to let set for at least 2 or 3 days and test it to find out if it's tillable. You don't want to put a tiller in that. Okay, this spinner piece, however, if they form a ball and I throw it up in the air, oops, and it breaks apart, then it's just right for tilling.
All right, here's our Q&A session. Mr. Tom, you jump in there and help us out. Being a
right.
master gardener and all. All right?
Okay.
So here's our first viewer email. What causes a plum tree to flower every year but not give any fruit? And this is from Peter. So Ms. Carol, I remember you sent us out, a publication about this once before, about fruit plants that needed pollinators. So what say you about this?
It's a lonely plum. It's lonely.
It's lonely.
They're perfect flowers. Everything in the Rosaceae family does have male and female on the same flower, but it needs a separate individual. It doesn't want to pollinate itself. That's not a good idea. That's like inbreeding. So it needs a cross-pollinator. So I don't know what kind they have.
Yeah, that's right. It just says a plum tree, so.
Yes.
Right.
Some have been bred to be self-fertile, but it sounds like theirs is not. And most people a lot of times don't know what they have. They just got something.
Yeah.
I'd say just go get a couple other 2 different types, then you kind of ensured that you have a pollinator and plant those near enough for the insects to ferry the pollen.
Okay.
Yeah, it would help if they knew the variety,
Right.
because if you knew the variety, some, like you said, are self-pollinators, and some do require companions.
Yes.
So it's a lonely plant. Oh, all right. Yeah, because I remember that you sent out to all the agents, about what fruit trees require pollinators and such. So that's always good information. All right, Peter, so I hope that helps you out. Here's our next viewer email. The last several days, my zucchini has been blooming, but I've noticed only 1 or 2 female flowers. This morning I counted and there were 20 flowers, but none of them were female. Is there a reason for this? Is there anything I can do to encourage more female flower blossoms on my zucchini? And this is from Mr. Mike in Ringo, Georgia. So thank you, Mr. Mike.
Cool.
All right, so here's the question. Is there anything I could do to encourage more female flower blossoms on my zucchini?
Well, the thing is, this is kind of normal at the beginning of the season. Just like my plants, in the morning when they first started blossoming, they were all females, no boys around. So, and then as time progresses, and I got calls about that, not necessarily for zucchinis, but just yellow squash and stuff like that. And then a little bit later, the boys start showing up.
Mine's usually the other way around.
Yeah.
I'll have male
Yeah,
first.
the males
and
that be
then-
first is when I'm
Well, see,
used to.
now one season I will have the males in the morning, and then later on I would have females in the afternoon. But that time the boys are closed. Boy blossoms are closed up, and then sometimes it's reversed. It just depends, like you said, you have your boys. But this
Yeah, the boys
this
are
year
always
I had
there.
all girls in the morning, and then later on the boys showed up, and then they finally got together.
I'm wondering if the first tend to be males because it doesn't take as much energy, maybe.
See, that's what I thought. I thought it had to do with the energy.
Yeah, female flowers, they have to have an ovary, and they're going to make babies. It's going to take more from the
and they're
plant.
larger blooms though
Yeah, that's
as well.
true.
So that's why I thought they would require more energy.
That's true.
Because you need the boys, right? Because the boys are going to provide a lot of the pollen. So they're not probably going to require as much energy as the female blossoms, which are bigger, ovary. So that's what I thought was
That's
the
the other
energy.
thing. And the plant needs to be bigger to,
Right.
to start producing the female.
Like I said, I've been getting the girls, but one of the things you can do if you want to encourage them.
Is mulch with pink.
Yeah,
Go
right.
ahead. I had to be. Just,
Just get one of those little cheap artist brushes, or even a Q-tip, and when you got the boys are open, just go ahead and grab some of the pollen off of it, and then when the girls show up later, then
I'm too
dust them.
lazy. I'm just going to wait a week.
Just wait.
They'll be around.
And nature will take its course.
It will.
Yeah, it will happen.
So be patient.
Be patient, Mr. Mike, is the word, and thank you for that question, all right? Here's our next viewer email. Some of my squash plants are big and have dark green leaves, and others are smaller with light green leaves. How can I help the smaller ones? And this is Layla. So, Mr. Tom, what do you think?
Well, my garden is like a micro environment. I had one area right from one end of my garden to the other. The things that just not like to grow in there. Both sides of it, everything was fine, just that one spot. So I ended up fertilizing it a little bit better and did some soil amendments in that area. And then now you couldn't tell it was there, but I think I would probably give a little bit more work on those weaker ones. Give them a little bit better fertilizer.
Could it be drainage is a little bad
See,
there?
that's where I was going. I thought maybe drainage may be an issue. Yeah.
Again, of course,
First thing that came to my mind.
Yeah. But drainage would be a good one.
Yeah, drainage, because they were, larger leaves. Now you have the light green leaves, so I thought maybe drainage could be an issue.
And it's like Carol mentioned before, and I think we all know that plants like air too, the roots.
Right.
And again, it could be just the soil in that particular spot could be different.
Yep.
Could be, Miss Layla. So there you have it. All right. So, Mr. Tom, Miss Carol, we're out of time.
Okay.
Fun as always.
It was fun.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Need some garden advice? Head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have hundreds of videos on all sorts of gardening topics to help you and your plants be successful this year. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.